Have you ever heard a business owner utter the phrase, it's hard to find good help these days? Well, in the post pandemic world, maybe it is actually hard to find good help due to the great resignation. But typically, when people have said this in the past, they're not talking about that it's actually hard to hire people. They're talking about that the people that they did hire aren't quite producing the result that they were looking for. And at the end of the day, whose fault is that? Is that the person or is it the owner? Well, if you take the ownership, accountability, and responsibility for the actions that you produce, it ultimately relies back to the owner. So the owner's probably the person who hired the person in the first place, right? So what do we do about this? How can we lead a team to execute more effectively? If we set goals and we're not setting goals that are clear, if we don't have an action plan, if we're not following and implementing the four disciplines of execution, then we may be setting our team up for failure. So, in this video, I'm going to be sharing actually um, some of the best guides and takeaways from the four disciplines of execution. I'm actually going to go over each of them. So, get your pen and paper out and think about how this applies to you. Um, so keep in mind, these are disciplines. These are not something that you just know and think, oh, well, now that I know this, everything is well. You've got to actually work on strengthening the execution of these disciplines themselves because there's knowing and then there's doing and then there's getting your ideal result. And if you know something, even if you're doing it, but you're not getting your ideal result, then you have areas that you can improve. So, discipline number one talks about focusing on the wildly important. So, really making it clear whether you're setting a goal or you're having your team execute their job. What is the most important thing? Really make that clear. Write it out, and so that it is clear. If people do not know what is expected of them, if they are not clear with what the goals are or the actions that they need to take, the likely of hitting the nail right on the head is very small. So, if you're setting goals, a formula that you can use is to increase or decrease X from Y to Z by a certain time frame. So, it could be increase the number of sales from 100,000 to 125,000 by the end of the quarter, for an example. All right, so that's discipline number one. So, think on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rank your own skills, your own disciplines when you're aligning your team with a goal and then helping them to stay focused on it. All right, so now we're going to go to number two, and this is the discipline of acting on lead measures. So, what are lead measures? Well, in the book, they talk about lead measures are the actions that will influence and predict a result, right? So, if you only pay attention to the end result, then you're not paying attention to what you can do that can change the end result, right? So we think about what are the actions that we can take that are going to influence and predict a result. For example, you if you're trying to get a number of sales, you might want to focus on the number of calls or contacts that you make versus just the sales dollar. Sales dollar you'd want to pay attention to, that would be the lag metric, right? So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to the actions that we could take that will influence and predict the result. So if you haven't defined these, whether it's for a goal or a job, what are the actions that someone needs to take that are going to influence and predict the result in that area? You want to clearly define what they are and write them out so that there is a clear expectation of what that is. Otherwise, people might be guessing and they may be guessing the wrong thing. Have you ever seen that? Probably have. um, if you're watching this, please consider liking and subscribing. This is how we amplify our message and get it out to more people. It only takes a moment, but it'll mean a lot to us. And if you want to share, that is a way you can show that you care. So, discipline number three is keeping a compelling scoreboard and tracking it at least once weekly. So, a scoreboard, you may have seen this when someone was doing a fundraiser. Maybe they have a big thermometer right up on the wall and they say, this is where we're at now, and we're trying to get to this goal here. And then everyone can see the progress that is being made towards that goal. Now, you might want to break that down into a timeline. So you say, hey, if we want to be about halfway through our goal at about the halfway time of our goals timeline. So if we want to be at a certain goal by the end of the month, we want to be about at the halfway mark around the middle of the month, right? This will help to see visually, keeping everyone's eye on the prize, and it will help them see what progress they're making, if they're behind schedule, if they're on track, or if they need to push a little bit harder, right? And the final discipline of execution is establishing accountability, right? Establishing accountability and really getting away from excuses and focusing on keeping integrity. A lot of times people will be asked, why didn't they accomplish a certain goal, or why didn't they take a certain action? And we hear all the excuses all the time. Um, I didn't have time to do it. This other thing came up that was more important. And if you continually let that happen, it creates a culture of excuses. Things happen. That doesn't change how we respond to them. If we are responsible, we are able to choose our response. And so if something happened, we may need to change our priorities and put first things first to take the action we committed to taking. Now, it's important to know you can't uh, hold someone accountable for a result they have little to no control over. It's unproductive. That's why we want to focus on the lead measures, the actions people can take that will influence and predict a result, because those are the things that they can control. So we want to do this in a positive way. Accountability does not mean discipline. It does not mean we have to smash people and yell at them and insult them or threaten them to get a result. That's might get a short-term result, but that would actually push people away. Instead, we want to use positive accountability and helping people to keep their integrity by saying, okay, this didn't get done, but now we need to work a little extra hard to make sure that it does get done. What are ways that I can support you? What are ways the team can support you? What are the things that we need to work through so that you're empowered and you have the guidance and you're set up for success to get the result? Positive accountability can really help build people up and give them the confidence they need to achieve their goal. So those are the 4 disciplines of execution. It's a great book with a lot of awesome examples of people that have used these principles to build teams globally around the world. Marriott is a great example. They strove to deliver excellence, and by really focusing on what was most important and getting everyone united and aligned, they were able to achieve amazing results. And this is, again, something where it's not enough to just know this and say, yeah, I kind of know that. It's something you've got to put into practice. It's something that you've got to strengthen and get better at. And those 4 principles, those 4 disciplines of execution can take your business to the next level. It's one of the reasons at Growth Amplifiers, those we work with, we help them implement, practice, and strengthen those so that it can get the best results for them and amplify their business and their mission. So I'd love to hear what strategies have worked for you to help lead a team to get the best possible results. Put it in the comments and appreciate your support.